Welcome back viewers, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries and anyone with ears or other sound detection organs. Hope you enjoy. We are continuing with Going Native, written by Uncle Sealing. Going Native, Chapter 49. 24 assault commandos, veterans of countless drops, stood in formation in one of the hotel's unused conference rooms. Most were Shilvati, though there was a single Helcom in the mix. This meeting was going to have to be short. Dilek had called down some extra Marines to work security during this briefing, and that really didn't look good for her. It also wasn't cheap. All right, girls, I think it's fair to say these last couple of months have been pleasant. Idyllic, even. The facility team has been pleased with our work, and they have been kind enough to loan us this extensive, and more to the point, comfortable hotel for us to use. Our patrols have run like clockwork, no insurgents have even gotten close, and you have all been exceedingly well rewarded for your work. So imagine my surprise this morning when an investigator for the interior called me into one of the upstairs suites so that she could give me the mother of all ass chewings. What was she so upset about? This. Dilek reached into a pocket and pulled out an amber glass bottle, mostly empty. She placed it on the table in front of her with a thunk that reverberated through the room. Eyes twitched on some of her soldiers, faces flushed. She could see fear in at least half a dozen sets of black eyes. Now, I can tell that quite a few of you know what this is. That is a very bad thing, but for those of you who don't know, I am going to give you a play-by-play of the last couple weeks. Among the staff of this facility, the people that we have sworn to protect, there is a human you have all seen. You know the one. Mismatched eyes, missing half a leg. The only human who lives here at the hotel with us. The one that's personal friends with said investigator for the interior. A couple weeks ago, this human spent about 15,000 credits of his own money to get what the humans call a sauna installed at this facility. He did this because they are a good way to relax, and, since this human whose life we are to protect needs extensive physical therapy, it will help soothe his aching muscles. Because he is a nice person, he opened his little sauna up to everyone here, and it turned out to be popular. So popular that the human who purchased it has only been able to use it 2 or 3 times. Still, because he is polite and we are big scary soldiers, he did not say anything. He just let you go about your business and play with his physical therapy equipment so much that he couldn't use it. Dilek took a moment to look at the sea of faces in front of her. There was shame there in many of them, pride in a few. Those had abused the privileges, but they were still going to have to deal with the consequences. So, now that we have covered the events leading up to what happened yesterday, let's get to the real meat of the problem. Yesterday Inspector Chelsea decided to stop by, tour the facility, and check up on her friend. This coincided with one of the few times our human charge has actually been able to use his sauna, so he was going to forego the single time this week that he was going to be able to use his physical therapy equipment so that he could chat with his friend. She insisted that he not waste his time slot, and they decided to go together so they could continue their conversation. Imagine her surprise to find, among the unguents and scented oils that are supposed to make the experience more soothing and relaxing, a gigantic bottle of pure narcotics. The human had no idea how it got there. None of the facility staff had any idea. I sure as fuck had no clue. But I can tell by the looks on your faces that some of you did. I can see some smirks in the audience, which tells me what sort of idiots you all are. You have no idea how serious the trouble is that you have brought down on our little team. This place is nice and soft and easy. All of you know damn well that this is a multimillion credit research facility. We came here on a goddess-blessed assault drop, for fuck's sake. And instead of taking the job seriously, you were using the humans' PT equipment to hotbox menthol and fuck. Now, Inspector Chelsea spoke to Lieutenant Ellera before bringing me into this. She also took the time to review the security logs for this building. particularly the entrance and exit times. Now some of those nervous looks had switched to outright panic. Some of you have been shorting your shifts. Cutting patrols short so you have more time to lounge around and fuck. I don't think I have to tell you how serious this is. For now, you are all going to stand here, at full attention, while I go and personally search every one of your rooms for contraband. I will, of course, find some, because you are all idiots. Even if I do not find anything in your room, you are all culpable for what has happened here. We share our victories and we share our failures. We will all be leaving this place, to be replaced by people who can take their jobs seriously. Many of you can expect a black mark on your record or worse. It depends on what I find. The unfamiliar knock on his apartment door, 2 quick taps, drew Stace's attention from the book he was reading. Not that it mattered much, he was getting a headache anyway. There was too much to catch up on. Come in. A rather sheepish and shy Chelsea slipped in, closing the door behind her. It was an unusual look on the young woman. I looked for you at your workshop, but it was locked. What was going on with her? That interior agent confidence seemed to be gone. Yeah, there was a lot of yelling going on out there, so I decided to just stay inside. How are you feeling? Stace really didn't want to bring up how awkward yesterday afternoon had been, but he had to know. Chelsea hadn't looked exactly well when they parted ways. Much better. Chelsea coughed into her hand to break up the sentence and collect her thoughts. Everything is good. You should have a skull scan you when he gets back from his date. If you're still around, I mean. To be honest, I sort of expected you to have already run off. Stace smiled at the Shilvati. She was a foot taller than he was, even with both of his legs, always severely dressed, and wielded unimaginable power. Still, being around Chelsea was comfortable. Any residual unease had burned off during the incident at the sauna the previous day. Chelsea snorted back a laugh. I think we can both agree that I was in no shape to be going anywhere after yesterday. I appropriated one of the rooms upstairs and took care of. She seemed to realize what she just implied, a hand covering her face as her purple skin flushed a deep blue, almost the color of Prussian blue oil paint. Can we please pretend I didn't just say that? Of course. Stace smiled. He still wasn't sure what this visit was about, but a friend visiting didn't really need to be about anything. He would just let things progress and see where it went. I'm getting old, Jill. Been around the block a few times. You're not going to shock me. Chelsea grinned at him then, some of the vulnerability retreating behind that Shilvati feminine confidence. I'm sure I could if I tried. Stace just raised an eyebrow and waited for her to blush again, and there it was. Would you like to sit down and chat a while? If you don't mind helping me transfer back onto my wheelchair, I can get you a drink. No, I couldn't impose. Jill. Stace interrupted and got her to shut up. You're a guest visiting my home. I should be making sure you are comfortable, getting you a drink, and tending to you as a visitor. It's the polite thing to do. Can I impose on you to help me get into my wheelchair? It takes me too long to do it myself, and half the time I end up on the floor. That seemed to work. You know, we could get you one of those mobility exoskeletons so you can walk around while rebuilding your leg muscles. Stace shuddered in her arms as Chelsea got him moved into the chair. Those things look creepy. Like a spider is trying to eat your legs. Stace started the chair rolling and made it to his little kitchen. Chelsea followed along but didn't say anything as he started pulling bottles out of cabinets. Once he started shaving an orange, though, Stace finally managed to tickle her curiosity. What, exactly, are you making? Do you trust me, Jill? Of course. Then go get yourself a comfortable seat and I'll be with you in a minute. When Stace made it back to the living room, carefully balancing 2 drinks on the arm of the chair, Jelsai was sitting on one side of the couch next to where he had been sitting before. She was flipping through the book the human had been trying to force into his head. What is this? Intro to Crystallography. I need to brush up on my physics if I'm going to be useful around here for more than fixing toilets. He sat both glasses, each a tumbler with ice and a couple fingers of a murky brown liquid decorated with an orange peel, down on the coffee table, then folded up an arm on his chair and started scooting onto the couch. Jelsai grabbed Stace under the arms, and after a moment both were comfortably sitting next to one another. But why crystals? Jelsai seemed really nervous, grasping for a distraction. That was okay, Stace was willing to let her work towards whatever was bothering her. It wasn't like he had anywhere to be. Samuel gave me what he called a data dump of what's been going on around here. I started reading some of Sammy's work but I don't have the physics for it. Crystallography is related to both of the Sam's research and is actually really interesting, so it seemed like a good place to start. Oh. Jelsai took a sip of her drink, ice clinking in the tumbler. Stace took the moment to do the same. It was a bit of an experiment, but the burn of the bourbon and the delightful play of flavors on his tongue, coupled with the obvious reaction Jelsai had, told him that the drink was a success. Stace, you should marry me. I could drink this every day. She tipped the glass back and drank half of it in one gulp. Whoa, settle down there. It's a sipping drink, don't just pound it back. She sat the glass down half empty and let out a sigh. That is. I can't even describe it. Decadent, but I don't know enough human food to pick out the flavors. What is it? It's an old-fashioned, and before you ask, that's the name of the drink, not a description. I decided to get creative, so I fat-washed the bourbon in brown butter to give it some more complex flavor. Stace took a sip of his own and nodded. The brown butter added some fantastic butterscotch notes that offset the bitters well. I haven't had a drink in at least 12 years, so I figured if I was going to have one I'd do it right. Jelsai took another sip of hers, then let out a tiny moan. Seriously, this is good. You should do this professionally. I used to. Remember? Jelsai's nervousness and her blush reappeared in an instant and she slammed back the rest of the drink. Can I get another of these? I'll make you a deal. Stace slid his glass over towards her. You can have mine if you promise to sip it and not just pour it down your throat without tasting it. She nodded and took the drink, just holding it in her hands and trying to collect her thoughts. Can you tell me what's bothering you? Stace. Jelsai took a deep breath and let everything come out at once, a single breathy statement. I would like to inform you of my intention to court you romantically and ask for your permission to do so. Stace's whole brain just sort of locked up. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I guess you weren't kidding about the drink. That earned Stace a smirk. I wouldn't want to jump straight to marriage, of course. We need to get to know each other better. That said, if you were offering. No. The look in Jel's face was heartbreaking. Stace immediately tried to backpedal before the tears came. I meant I wasn't offering to marry you right now. Not the other stuff. So you will. Her young eyes were shining, a grin filling her young face. You'll let me romance you? I didn't say that either. Jesus, Jel, I'm twice your age. Stace was confused and worried. Worried about Ella and Iing and Marin and... This whole situation might be getting very dangerous. He trusted Jel to not hurt anybody intentionally, but there was so much that could go wrong. No, you're not. I turned 15 3 months ago and you turn 30 next month. That makes me more than half your age. Jelsai smirked at him. Stace was thrown for a loop, at least until his brain caught up and he translated the ages, 25 for Jelsai and 50 for him. I'm still old enough to be your dad. You're not even the right species to be my dad. That's fair, I guess. But still. Besides, Ellera is only a couple years older than me. Aang is pretty much the same age. Why? Stace took a moment to collect his thoughts. He wasn't good with people in general and was probably the worst person to try to navigate this minefield of a conversation. What does Aang have to do with it? Stace, you must seriously be the galaxy's worst card player. Jelsai's expression was a mix of vindication with a touch of sadness. She knew, had already known, but wasn't really happy about it. Stace could feel himself starting to lock up again as panic gripped him. With a small segment of his mind he noticed that his hands were bound into fists, his right arm twitching. A far larger hand reached out and grabbed his, wrapping around it until he calmed down enough to talk, to loosen his fist and let fingers intertwine with his. Are we safe? Yes, Stace. You're safe. Everyone here is safe. How did you know? Stace, I'm an investigator. His feeling of betrayal, of being examined like a specimen in a lab, must have shown because Jelsai held up the hand that wasn't holding Stace's. I didn't spy on you or plant listening devices or anything like that. I wouldn't do that. I have had suspicions for a while, but I spent last night and this morning reviewing the security logs and footage here. Since the security team was being incredibly unprofessional and, to be honest, I badly needed a distraction, I started digging through everything to make sure there wasn't any unauthorized access. I noticed that Aang has been spending as much time here as Ellera, which made sense because you're friends. Except the badge scans at the security doors showed that he was spending the night fairly often. That got me a bit suspicious, especially since I know you were married to a male before, you know. Stace nodded and she continued. Well, to be honest I still needed a distraction, so I watched the helmet camera views of the attack on the facility and the subsequent cleanup. Seeing Sammy's little traps against trained professionals was hilarious, but as they did the room-by-room sweep I noticed that in the entire facility there was only one bed that seemed to have actually been used recently despite there being two families living there. Lastly, and, well, most notable, there is this, which I bought about 2 weeks ago. Jelsai released Stace's hand and pulled a battered and creased book out of her pocket, handing it over. It was one of those softcover books printed in a just too big to not match the other books in your shelf size. Jelsai had rolled it up to fit in her pocket and now the thin volume refused to sit flat in his hands. Still, the title was easy enough to read. Bright, sparkling letters on the front of the book read, Shirin the Love, A Newbie's Guide to Polyamory by Dr. Sammy Painter Forsyth, not that kind of doctor. Idly, Stace flipped through the glossy pages, looking at the cute little cartoons of Sammy discussing the practical and social aspects to a polyamorous relationship. The last page featured a hexagonal grid like you would use for biochemistry homework and the title Draw Your Polycule. Stace noticed his name and Aang's and nearly everyone else in the facility. Someone had tried mapping out their family several times. All of the pen marks were very recent. How close was I? Jelsai was looking over Stace's shoulder. Honestly. Stace looked the different configurations over. I have no idea. End of chapter. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any episode and do all the other YouTube stuff, visit and support the author, and I'll see you next time. If you didn't enjoy, comment on what I can do better. And as usual, have a wonderful day.